This guy's name is Chi. After graduating, he worked for many different companies. It seemed like his life was like a sad movie, but one day he suddenly became rich from the game he created. Going to work today, Chi was going to be late for work, and the train was about to close to leave, so he had to hurry up and get on. He finally had time to check attendance at the company. At noon, he didn't know what to order for lunch. After using a bunch of discount codes, he had a meal. After eating, he decided to play a game before work. While engrossed in playing the game, the boss came in. Chi Alt-Tab is very fast, the boss keeps looking back and keeps looking back, causing him to lose the game. When he got off work, he wanted to run home but was stopped by his boss. He wanted him to turn in his work tomorrow, but he figured it was due Wednesday. He immediately expressed his attitude towards his boss, but that was just his thoughts. As soon as he sat back at the table, Chi suddenly saw the surroundings darken and only the computer screen lit up. The phone sent a text message allowing him to test his future luck. He accidentally dropped his phone in the trash when suddenly a bunch of gold envelopes flew out of the phone and pulled him straight into the trash. He then wakes up and meets his friend Yang again. The people in the room said to quickly go to class because they didn't take attendance for them. He then reviewed the situation around him and found himself back in his first year of college and in the dormitory. He remembered that at school back then, there was a teacher who looked easygoing on the outside but was steaming on the inside. Anyone who does not take enough attendance will retake the exam. Once I get back here, I will take advantage of the opportunity to rebuild my life. Suddenly a system appeared that made him fall backwards. This system is called fortune conversion. The system will give you an amount of capital so you can start getting rich. As soon as he looked at the amount of money given, he was happy because he suddenly got 50,000 yuan, but he still hadn't read the rules of this system. Every specified period of time, the system will give you a certain amount of capital, which can be used for business and must not be wasted. After the settlement period, the loss and profit ratio will be calculated according to a convention and converted into personal assets for you. The system then generates the conversion ratio between profit and loss. When looking through it, she saw that if he invested at a loss, the amount he would receive would be 100 times the amount when he made a profit. While he was happy because he didn't need to invest to win money, the system wanted him to choose an industry to invest in. Prohibitions were then introduced and he realized that there was only serious investment. He then needed time to think, so the system gave him time. After looking through his phone, he realized that the game industry seemed interesting, so he decided to choose to make games. He then told the system that he would make a game. The system gave him the company name and then warned him not to tell anyone about the system. He promised to comply, so the system also gave him 14 days to make the game and then disappeared. Suddenly Yang turned around. She asked Yang about game programming methods. So Yang introduced him to a game programming software that was quite easy. The templates for programming were already there, so he immediately ran to the library to work. He decided to create a super boring game that would bore players and make him lose money. He bought a car model and put it on a racetrack with a desert background, adding a day and night mechanism. So he had a racing game with a ranking feature. He then heard an announcement describing the game and finally had to see how long the track would be. And so he left the finish line extremely far to make players quickly bored with this game. He then set the game's selling price to 1 dong instead of setting the price high. Meanwhile, in the present, the boss is angry because Chi disappeared at an important moment. When he called, he only saw his phone in the trash, so he got even angrier. The next morning, Chi was brought food by Yang. He sat down to check how his game was doing and sure enough, there wasn't a single download. Because today is a day off, the whole room decided to play games together. Everyone called Chi to join the game, but he said he stayed up a lot last night, so now he wants to catch up on sleep. The whole room then invited each other to play the game and were constantly defeated by the enemy. Seeing that they were still playing stupidly like before, he could rest assured and go to sleep. Although it was noisy, he missed this noise very much. He remembered that before he graduated from school, he had to live a boring life with no time to play games. He thought about what he would do with the money he was about to have. But in the meantime, a blogger specializes in bad-mouthing trash games. Just finished making a cup of noodles and complaining about not being hired by anyone to write articles. Feeling bored, he looked to see if there was any trash game to talk about and suddenly found Cheese Game. When he tried the game, there were no instructions and he just kept playing. He played the game for a while, then the kettle boiled, so he lost concentration and lost. He then tried again but stopped the game midway. He played seriously, but constantly losing made him bitter and sat for hours trying to beat this trash game. But the more he played, the more bitter he became, so he tried to reassure him that this was work. After drinking a bottle of water, he started playing games more frantically. Just as he was about to give up, a text asked him if he didn't want to know what the reward at the end of the game was. So he went back to playing the game. And so, many hours passed. As he drove and contemplated life, he crossed the finish line. He was happy because after 8 hours he finished the game. Eagerly looking at the reward, what he received was a congratulatory message for wasting 8 hours on this. The next day, she asked the system about the settlement and there were still more than 11 days left. Suddenly Chi heard some young people in class talking about his 8-hour game. Even though they say this is a trash game, it's quite engaging to play. He then skipped class and ran straight to the dormitory to check out the game, which had more than 10,000 downloads. He tried to see who was making his game trend and was told by Yang that he was a blogger. I watched this blogger's slander video and he described everything about this frustrating game, plus the game's lame ending. But regardless of what blogger said, people still download the game because they think that after clearing the island 3 times, they will unlock some mysterious ending. So Chi had to describe this game as trash and not interesting. But people forgave him because they already knew this was a trash game. Yang then downloaded it and tried it and was so angry that he cursed whoever made this game. She originally made the game so that no one would play it. Yet people like it even more. Meanwhile, a major company has soon set its sights on Chi's newly released and wildly popular game. They realized he was something to keep an eye on. In the following days, Chi's game continued to be popular and soon achieved more than 200,000 downloads. Even though he made a profit of 70,000 yuan, in terms of ratio, he only earned 700 yuan. The system congratulates him because his products surpass more than 90% of his competitors. The system then informed him that he would be granted additional capital from 50,000 yuan to 300,000 yuan, meaning that his possibility of loss would now be harder. But he has another 30 days to continue the investment process. When he returned to his room, Chi was determined to spend all 300,000 yuan and not leave a penny. Because he was depressed, he decided to play games with the whole group in the room. As a result, Chi alone could not carry the team. Everyone blamed it on Yang always going somewhere else every time they fought. Suddenly Chi realized that he was too smart to make a trash game to lose money. And this incompetent Yang is exactly the factor he needs. The next day in class, Yang was always stared at by Chi. While at the cafeteria, everyone kept paying attention to both of them. Seeing that, Yang had to ask Chi what he wanted. Chi said he wanted to make a game and needed Yang's help. Yang believes that making games costs money and effort, so he refuses. But Chi said that he had 300,000 yuan available from the recently popular trash game. Yang immediately insisted on following. Chi wanted Yang to freely create games. So after that, Yang brought back a bunch of programming books, but this pile was basically useless because now everyone makes games using other applications. At night, Yang fell asleep after reading a few lines. Seeing that, she liked it even more. The next morning, she woke up early and started thinking about what kind of game to make and what content to make so that people wouldn't notice him. Thinking about making a big game and then being criticized will result in a loss of capital. But the capital is not necessarily enough to make such a big game. Spending all the money without finishing the game will be considered illegal. He then went to look at good games on his phone and found that there were quite a few games with the Three Kingdoms theme. Making games like this will make it easier to compete with other parties. Chi decided to make a Three Kingdoms game and he planned to spend a lot of money to edit these Three Kingdoms characters.